The city lights of the colony world glowed faintly under the night sky. Ethan walked slowly along the busy street, his hands in his pockets, his mind elsewhere. Life here was noisy, full of merchants shouting, ships landing, and soldiers marching. To him, it all felt the same. Another day, another crowd. But tonight felt strange. He didn't know why. The air felt heavier, as if something waited for him. He turned a corner. Passing a market where traders sold glowing fruit and strange tools from alien worlds. People pushed past him, rushing to their homes before curfew. Ethan kept walking, his eyes on the ground, and then he heard a voice. Soft, clear, familiar. "Do you remember me, human?" Ethan froze, his chest tightened. Slowly, he lifted his head. Standing in the shadows was a figure tall, graceful, with silver eyes that shone faintly in the dim light. Her skin glowed pale, almost luminous, and a thin line of markings curved along her cheekbones. She wore simple clothing, but her presence was anything but simple. She looked alien yet, not a stranger. Ethan blinked, confused. His heart pounded. What? He managed. The woman stepped forward. Her voice was steady, but there was something fragile beneath it. "It's me, your neighbor. From when we were children." Ethan's breath caught in his throat. Childhood. A neighbor? That was impossible. His childhood home had been far from this colony. And she wasn't even human. "You must be mistaken," he said quickly, shaking his head. "I don't know you." But her eyes. Her eyes pierced him. "You do?" She whispered. "Think back. The small house with the garden. The fence between our yards. You gave me half of your bread once when I was hungry. You called me Stargirl." The word hit him like a blade of memory. "Stargirl," he whispered. Images rushed into his mind, two children sitting under a tree, looking at the night sky. A girl with dark hair, smiling, pointing at the stars. Laughter, the sound of her voice. The promise they made. "When we grow up, we'll see the stars together." His knees weakened. He stared at the alien woman before him. "That's not possible," he said softly. She disappeared. Her family left one night, and no one ever saw them again. They said they were gone. The woman's silver eyes glistened. "We didn't leave, Ethan. We were taken." Ethan's pulse raced. Taken? By who? And how? Could she stand before him now? No longer human, but something else. She stepped closer. The markings on her skin seemed to shift faintly in the light, alive with a strange energy. Yet her gaze was still the same, gentle, searching, almost desperate. "I've carried your memory all these years," she whispered. "You may not believe me, but I remember everything." Ethan backed up slightly, his mind spinning. He wanted to deny it, to call her a liar, to say this was some alien trick. But deep inside, his heart knew. The way she spoke, the way she looked. At Hemet was his childhood friend, his lost neighbor. Now an alien beauty. But why? How? He swallowed hard, his voice rough. "If you are really her, then tell me why you're here now. Why reveal yourself to me?" Her lips trembled. She took a breath, her words heavy with sorrow. "Because you are the only human I trust. The only one who ever saw me as more than nothing. And now, I need you again." The street around them grew quieter, the crowd thinning. Ethan's hands clenched at his sides. His heart told him to listen, but his mind screamed danger. She was alien. She was different. Trusting her could destroy everything. Yet her eyes? They were the same eyes that had once looked at him through a wooden fence, filled with wonder at the stars. "Please," she whispered. "Do you remember me, human?" Ethan's breath shook. The world seemed to blur around him. He didn't. Answer: not yet. But deep inside, he knew his life had just changed forever, and nothing would ever be the same again. Asterisk. A voice from the past. Ethan's breath was uneven. The noise of the colony street faded, as though the world had pulled back and left only the two of them standing in the shadows. The alien girl's words still rang in his ears. "I'm your neighbor." From when we were children, it was madness, impossible, and yet. The way she looked at him, those silver eyes, soft with recognition, made it impossible to dismiss. He forced a shaky laugh. "You expect me to believe that? That the girl who lived next door, the one who vanished years ago, is standing here as this?" She didn't flinch at his doubt. She only lowered her gaze, as though she expected it. "I knew you wouldn't. Believe me, not right away. But listen, let me remind you." Ethan frowned, but his chest was tight with curiosity. Against his better judgment, he stayed. She stepped closer, her voice soft, steady, carrying an old memory like a fragile flame. "You had a little wooden ball. You carved it yourself with your father's knife. You used to throw it against the fence, and sometimes it rolled into my yard. You always pretended it was an accident, but you only wanted me to throw it back." Ethan's eyes widened. The memory hit him like a rush of cold air. That ball, that game. He hadn't thought of it in years. No one else could have known. Still, he shook his head. Anyone could have guessed that. Her lips curved into a faint, sad smile. "Then do you remember the day it cracked? You cried because it split in two. I told you we could fix it, and I wrapped it in string. We called it our star ball because the string made it look like the night sky. You laughed when I said, we should launch it into space one day." Ethan's throat closed. His knees felt weak. That memory was buried deep, hidden even from himself, until now. Only one person could have known. The girl he once called Star Girl. Ethan swallowed hard, his voice low. "If you really are her, what happened? Where did you go? Everyone said your family left in the middle of the night." Her silver eyes dimmed with sorrow. "We didn't leave, Ethan. We were taken." His stomach twisted. "Taken by who?" She hesitated. Her gaze darted around as if the shadows themselves might be listening. "It's not safe to say their name here. But they came for us when the world was quiet. They said we were chosen. My parents begged, but no one heard. No one came." Her voice broke, trembling now. "I was only a child. I didn't understand. One moment I was in my bed, dreaming of the stars. The next, I was in a cage of light, leaving Earth behind." Ethan's heart thudded painfully. His fists clenched. He had been asleep that night, safe in his bed, never knowing the girl next door was being stolen away. "You disappeared," he whispered. "Everyone thought you were gone forever." "I was," she said quietly. "At least, the girl you knew was." Ethan studied her face, torn between disbelief and guilt. She looked alien, yes, her skin pale, glowing faintly under the lights, her silver eyes not of this world. But her voice carried echoes of the past. Small details only she could know, yet doubt clawed at him. "This doesn't make sense," he said sharply. "How can a human child become this?" She didn't recoil from his harshness. Instead, she touched the faint markings on her cheek, the symbols that glowed softly. "They changed us," she whispered. "They broke us apart and put us back together. They said we were being remade into something better. But it wasn't better. It was survival. Some didn't survive at all." Her hands shook, but she forced herself to continue. "I lost my father first, then my mother. They couldn't endure it, but I held on. I told myself I had to survive, because I wanted to keep a promise." Ethan's brow furrowed. "What promise?" She looked up, her eyes shimmering like liquid silver, to see the stars with you. The words shattered his defenses. That promise had been nothing more than a childish dream, whispered beneath a summer sky. But she had carried it across years, across galaxies, through pain and fear. Ethan stepped back, his mind a storm. You're asking me to believe too much? That you're her? That you lived through whatever that was? That you came back here now, of all places? Her voice grew urgent. I came back because you're the only one I trust. You were the only one who ever made me feel human. Silence hung heavy between them. Ethan's hands shook. His chest ached. He wanted to run, to escape this impossible truth. But he couldn't move. His childhood neighbor, his lost friend, the girl he once called Stargirl, she stood before him, transformed, broken, yet alive. And she had sought him. Her voice softened again, carrying sorrow like a shadow. Do you know what it's like to be told you're nothing? To be remade until you don't recognize yourself? To wonder if anyone remembers who you were. Her words dug into him like knives. He had spent years believing she was gone, yet here, she was alive, asking him to see her, to remember her. He swallowed hard, his throat tight. I don't know what to say. Then say nothing, she whispered. Just don't turn away. Ethan's breath shook. He didn't turn away. The crowd had thinned. The street was quiet now, only the distant hum of ships and the hiss of the cold night air. Ethan looked at her for a long time, his chest heavy with conflict. She was alien. She was changed. But she was also her. The girl he had shared bread with. The girl who had wrapped his broken toy in string. The girl who had pointed at the stars with wide, dreaming eyes. Now she stood before him, carrying scars of worlds he couldn't imagine, and for the first time in years. Ethan felt the weight of memory pressing against the present. He spoke at last, his voice trembling. If you truly are her, then you've come back to a world that won't accept you. People here, they'll see only what you look like now. They won't remember who you were. Her eyes glistened. Then let them see what they want. I don't need them to remember. I only need you to. The words silenced him. His heart pounded. For the first time, he realized this wasn't just a reunion. It was a plea. Not only for recognition, but for survival. Secrets revealed, the night deepened around them. The colony street nearly empty. The hum of distant ships and the hiss of cooling engines echoed faintly, but here in the shadows. It felt as if the world had shrunk to two people, one human, one alien, bound by a fragile thread of memory. Ethan's jaw clenched. You can't just say things like this and expect me to accept them. If what you told me is true, then I need answers. Who took you? What happened to you? And why now appear after all these years? The alien girl lowered her eyes, her hands tightening at her sides. For a moment, Ethan thought she wouldn't speak, but then she drew in a shaky breath. You're right. You deserve to know. She lifted her head, her silver gaze glowing faintly in the dark. They called themselves the Serati. You wouldn't have heard their name before. They don't show themselves to ordinary humans. They come in silence, in shadows, always at night. They study, they take, and then they vanish. That's what happened to my family. Ethan's heart pounded at the name. It felt heavy, unnatural, as if even speaking it carried danger. The Serati, he murmured. Why you? Why your family? Her voice quivered, though she forced it steady. They said we were suitable material, that our genetics held something they wanted. They didn't see us as people, Ethan. To them, we were ingredients. Ethan felt sick. His fists clenched, nails biting into his palms. The idea of anyone treating her family as material, burned him with anger he didn't know he carried. They experimented on us. She continued, her eyes distant now, lost in the weight of memory. At first, they tried to keep us whole. But when my parents resisted, when they refused to comply, the Sarati broke them down. They didn't survive. Her voice cracked. For a moment, the mask of calm slipped, and Ethan saw the little girl she had once been, the girl who had laughed beneath the stars, shatter beneath grief. "I thought I'd die too," she whispered. "But they saw something in me, my body, adapted where others broke. They changed my skin, my eyes, my very bones. Piece by piece, I became less human and more of what they wanted. And when I looked in the mirror, I didn't know who I was anymore." Ethan's throat tightened. The markings on her face, the glow in her eyes, they weren't decorations. They were scars, scars of survival. "Why didn't they keep you?" Key asked, his voice hoarse. "If you were what they wanted, why are you here now?" Her lips curved into a bitter smile. "Because to them, I am a failure. Not fully Sarati, not fully human, something in between. They abandoned me, left me on a border world, as if I were nothing but a broken tool." Ethan felt a rush of anger so fierce it shook him. Abandoned, left as nothing. How could anyone look at her and not see the strength it took to survive? But before he could speak, her voice grew even softer. "I wandered for years, Ethan. No home. No name. Only whispers of who I used to be. But all through it, one thing stayed with me, your face. Your voice. That promise we made." Ethan blinked, startled. "Our promise." She nodded, her silver eyes shimmering with tears. "To see the stars together. It was the only thing that kept me alive when I wanted to give up. I told myself, I must live. I must endure. Because one day, I'll find him again." Her words struck like lightning through his chest. The childhood promise, a memory he had long buried, had become her lifeline across the darkness of years. Ethan's heart ached. "And now you've found me." "Yes," she whispered. "But I'm not the same girl you knew. I'm this." She gestured at her alien features with trembling hands. "Do you still see her in me, Ethan? Or is she gone forever?" For a long moment, Ethan couldn't answer. He looked at her, at the silver eyes that glowed faintly in the dark, at the markings on her cheeks, at the otherworldly aura she carried now. She was alien, yes, changed beyond recognition, but beneath all of it, he saw something familiar. The way her voice softened when she spoke his name. The way her eyes searched his face, not with judgment, but with hope. He saw Stargirl. "I don't know what you are now," he admitted, his voice rough. "But I know who you were. And I think part of her is still here." Her lips trembled. Tears glistened in her eyes. "That's all I wanted to hear," she whispered. The silence stretched, heavy but fragile. Ethan felt the weight of everything, pressing down her story, her scars, the impossible truth of her survival. And beneath it all, a new fear grew inside him. "If the Sarati abandoned you," he said slowly, "then why do you look so afraid? You said their name like it could burn you. Are they still hunting you?" Her expression darkened. She lowered her gaze, her hands tightening. "They don't abandon completely. They watch. They test. I've seen their ships in the sky, shadows, moving where no one else looks. If they learn I survived, they may come again. And this time, they won't leave me alive." Ethan's blood ran cold. His world had been simple hours ago. Work, streets, empty nights. Now, standing here with her, he felt the weight of an unseen enemy above him. "Why tell me all this?" he asked. "Why risk it?" Her answer was simple, but it broke him. "Because I had no one else. And because once, you were the only person who made me feel safe." Ethan stood there, stunned, his heart caught between fear and resolve. She was in danger. If the Sorority returned, they could both be destroyed. Logic screamed at him to walk away, to leave her, to pretend this meeting never happened. But his heart wouldn't allow it. The memory of her laughter beneath the stars. The sound of her whisper, calling him Ethan. The promise they made as children, those things chained him more tightly than any fear. He looked into her eyes and saw not just an alien, not just a victim of cruelty, but a girl who had survived the impossible, carrying his memory across the void, and he knew, in that moment, that walking away was no longer an option. "All right," he said softly, his voice steady now. "If you're telling me the truth, then you're not alone anymore. Whatever comes, we'll face it together." Her breath hitched. She stared at him as if she hadn't expected him to say those words. Slowly, her lips curved into the faintest, trembling smile. "You don't know what that means to me," she whispered. Ethan forced a smile of his own. "I think I do." But deep inside, he wondered, had he just stepped into a war he couldn't imagine? And if so, would their bond be strong enough to survive it? The bond rekindled. The night air was cold, but Ethan barely felt it. His mind spun with the storm of revelations she had given him about the Sorority, about her family, about the years of torment that had changed her into what she was now. Yet, through all of it, one thing shone bright. She had remembered him. Even in her darkest nights, she had carried his memory like a small light. And now she stood here, waiting, afraid he might still walk away. But he hadn't. The colony gates loomed nearby, their faint blue lights glowing in the dark. Ethan guided her quietly toward the shelter of his small quarters. It wasn't much, just a narrow metal room with a bed, a desk, and a heater that rattled when it worked. But for now, it was safer than the open street. As the door closed behind them, silence stretched. Ethan moved to the heater, turning it higher. The faint warmth spread through the room. Though his hands trembled faintly, the alien girl stood near the door, her arms wrapped around herself, her silver eyes watching him with both hope and fear. "You still don't trust me," she said softly. Ethan turned, meeting her gaze. "I don't trust easily. Not anymore, but I believe you." Her lips trembled into the faintest smile. "That's more than I expected." She moved closer, her gaze wandering across the cramped room. On the desk sat an old picture frame of Ethan as a boy, standing with his parents before they left Earth. She picked it up gently, tracing her fingers over the glass. "You haven't changed," she whispered. "Your eyes are the same, serious, always searching for something." Ethan chuckled dryly. "You've changed more than I can imagine." Her silver eyes dimmed, her voice quiet. "I know. I look in the mirror and wonder if I'm still her. If I'm still the girl you once knew." He studied her closely. The markings on her face, the way her skin glowed faintly under the heater's light. Alien, yes. But her voice, her words, her memories, those were hers. "You're still her," he said firmly. "Different, but still her." Her breath shook. She lowered the photo back onto the desk with careful hands. The days that followed were cautious, fragile. Ethan allowed her to stay, though it brought risk. Others in the colony noticed the strange figure at his side. Whispers followed them in the marketplace, suspicious stares cutting like blades. "Who is she?" people muttered. "She's not one of us. Why is he protecting her?" The colony wasn't cruel, but it was afraid. And fear could be just as dangerous. One afternoon, as they crossed the central square, a soldier stepped into their path. His eyes narrowed at her silver glow. "What are you?" he demanded. The girl froze, her body trembling. Ethan stepped forward quickly, placing himself between them. "She's with me." The soldier's jaw tightened. That wasn't the question. Ethan's voice hardened. "She's under my protection. That's all you need to know." For a moment, the soldier looked ready to argue. But something in Ethan's steady gaze made him step back with a grunt. Muttering as he walked away, the alien girl let out a shaky breath. Her hands trembled until Ethan touched her arm gently. "You don't have to be afraid," he said quietly. "Not while I'm here." She looked at him with wide, shimmering eyes. "You keep saying that, and every time you do, I almost believe you." That night, the two of them sat near the heater, sharing a meal. Ethan had cooked something simple: bread and stew, hardly enough for two. But when he slid the bowl toward her, she hesitated. "You always did this," she murmured. "When we were children, you'd give me half your food, even if you were hungry." Ethan smiled faintly. "You remembered that?" "I remembered everything." Her voice was fragile, yet filled with weight. "Even the night we sat under the fence and you told me you wanted to leave Earth. You said you wanted to see the stars. I told you I'd come with you. That we'd see them together." Ethan's chest tightened. That memory had been buried so deep he'd almost forgotten it. Yet here she was, pulling it into the light again. "And now," he said softly, "we're here. The stars are above us, but so much has changed." Her silver eyes glistened. "Not everything. Not you." The bond between them grew slowly, like a flame catching on cold wood. Each day, small pieces of trust returned. She began to laugh softly at his dry jokes, though her laughter was still fragile, as if she feared it might break. He began to notice how she listened carefully to every word he spoke, as though she was relearning who he had become. But not everyone was pleased. One evening, as Ethan left the supply office, two men cornered him in the alley. Ethan won. "Spat, why are you keeping her here? She's not human. She's dangerous." "She hasn't done anything," Ethan replied coldly. "Not yet." The man shot back. "But people are talking. You're putting us all at risk." Ethan's jaw clenched. "She's not a risk. She's someone, Tina, and I won't let you treat her otherwise." The men sneered, muttered curses, and stalked away. Ethan's fists were tight, his body trembling with anger. When he returned to his quarters, but she saw the tension in his face immediately. "What happened?" she asked softly. "Nothing," he said, shaking his head. But she didn't believe him. She placed her hand lightly on his arm. "They don't understand me, but you do. That's enough." Ethan looked at her hand, slender, trembling, faintly glowing. He covered it with his own, steady and warm. "For me," he said quietly, "it is." That night, for the first time, she didn't hesitate to sit beside him on the bed. The heater hummed, the light dim, the air quiet. She leaned against his shoulder, her eyes closing. "Do you know what I feared most?" she whispered. "What?" "You would see me like they do. That you would see only what I've become, not who I was. That you'd forget me." Ethan's chest ached. He turned his head, his voice firm. "I haven't forgotten. Not then. Not now." Her breath shook. She tilted her head up, silver eyes meeting his. "Then, maybe I can start to believe in myself again." Ethan's heart pounded. He didn't speak. He only tightened his arm around her shoulders, steady, protective, unshaken, and for the first time since her return, she let herself fall asleep without fear. The bond was fragile still, but it was real. And as Ethan watched her sleep, he knew that no matter what the others thought, no matter what the sorority had done, he would protect this connection. Because she wasn't just an alien, she was Stargirl, and he would never let her be taken again. Conflict and betrayal, the colony's morning bells rang across the settlement, calling people to work, trade, and duty. The streets bustled with life children, running, vendors shouting, guards patrolling. To most, it was just another day. But for Ethan and the alien girl, every step felt heavier. Her hood was pulled low to hide her glowing eyes, but whispers still followed wherever they walked. Ethan kept close beside her, his jaw tight, ignoring the stares. Yet no matter how much he tried to shield her, he could feel the wall of suspicion growing higher around them. That day, it cracked wide open. They had gone to the marketplace for food. Ethan picked through supplies while she lingered by his side, silent, her shoulders hunched. A fruit vendor glanced at her once, then twice, before scowling. "You," the vendor spat. "Don't bring her here." Ethan turned sharply. "She's with me." "I don't care," the vendor snapped. "She's not one of us. Take your alien pet somewhere else." The words burned through Ethan's chest. His fists clenched. He stepped closer, his voice low and firm. "She's not a pet. She's a person. And you'll treat her with respect." The vendor scoffed but backed away, muttering curses. Still, the damage was done. Others nearby had heard. Whispers spread quickly, growing sharper with each passing second. "Dangerous. She doesn't belong. Why's Ethan protecting her?" The alien girl lowered her head further, her breath uneven. Ethan wanted to shout at them all, but he knew it would only add fuel to the fire. Instead, he guided her away, his arms steady at her back. But as they left the market, he felt the weight of eyes on them, dozens of them, filled with distrust. That night, Tay, the colony council, summoned him. Ethan sat stiffly at the long table, the alien girl waiting anxiously outside. Tay, the council leader, a heavy-set man with tired eyes, leaned forward. "Ethan," he began slowly, "we've received complaints about your guest." Ethan's jaw tightened. "She's not a threat." The leader sighed. "Perhaps not, but fear is dangerous too. People feel unsafe. That alone can tear a colony apart." "She's done nothing wrong," Ethan argued. "She's just trying to survive." A councilwoman shook her head. "She's alien, changed. You heard the stories. Beings like her don't belong among us. If you care about this colony, you'll understand." Ethan's chest burned with anger. "If I care about this colony, then I won't let it become a place where we judge people by what they look like. She's not the enemy. The real enemy is out there, the Serati." The council exchanged uneasy glances. The leader's eyes hardened. "Ethan, you've always been loyal, but this time you're blinded. Protect her if you must, but if her presence causes division, the council will act. Do you understand?" Ethan's hands curled into fists. He forced his voice steady. "I understand, and I won't abandon her." When he left the chamber, the alien girl looked at him, her silver eyes searching his face. "What did they say?" she asked quietly. Ethan hesitated, then shook his head. "Nothing important, just more doubts." She lowered her gaze, her voice trembling. "I told you this would happen. They'll never accept me. They see me as a monster." "You're not a monster," Ethan said firmly. Her voice broke. "But what if they're right? What if I'm not human anymore? What if I don't belong anywhere?" Ethan's chest ached. He reached out, gripping her shoulders gently. "Listen to me. You belong. Maybe not to them, maybe not to the colony, but to me you always will." Her lips parted, a tear sliding down her cheek. She wanted to believe him. She needed to. But the shadows of doubt were strong. The betrayal came 3 nights later. Ethan had gone to fetch supplies from storage. When he returned, the door to his quarters stood open, the lock broken, his stomach twisted. He rushed inside. The room was in chaos, the heater overturned, the desk smashed, the old photo frame shattered on the floor, and she was gone. "Stargirl," he shouted, panic ripping through him. Silence, only the faint echo of boots fading. In the night, Ethan's blood boiled. Without thinking, he sprinted into the streets. The colony was quiet, but faint voices carried from the eastern alley. He followed. There they were, a group of men, soldiers among them, dragging her forward. She struggled weakly, her hood torn away, her glowing eyes wide with fear. "Let her go!" Ethan roared. The men froze, then turned. One sneered. "Ethan, she doesn't belong here. We're taking her to the outpost. Let the higher command deal with her. She hasn't done anything." Ethan shouted. "You're treating her like a criminal. She is a crime," the man snapped. "A walking reminder of what's out there. We won't wait until she betrays us. We're acting now." The alien girl cried out, struggling. "Ethan!" Something inside him snapped. He charged forward, slamming into the soldier holding her. They crashed to the ground. The others lunged, fists swinging. Ethan fought back with everything he had: years of training, pure fury, and the burning fire of memory. He took blows, his ribs aching, blood stinging his lip. But he didn't stop. He couldn't. Not when they were tearing her away again, just like the night the Serati had stolen her family. With a roar, Ethan struck the last man aside and grabbed her hand. "Run." Together they fled into the night, the shouts of pursuit echoing behind them. They didn't stop until they reached the outer cliffs, the colony lights far behind them. Both of them gasped for breath, bruised and bleeding. Ethan's chest burned, but his grip on her hand never loosened. She looked at him, trembling. "You fought them. For me?" "Of course I did," Ethan rasped. "I won't let anyone take you again." Her silver eyes shone with tears. She stepped closer, her hand pressing over his heart. Why risk everything?" Ethan met her gaze, his voice fierce. "Because you're not just someone I knew. You're not just an alien. You're you, and I won't lose you again." Her breath caught. For the first time, the fear in her eyes shifted into something else, something brighter, more fragile. Hope behind them, the colony alarms began to ring. They knew Ethan had defied them. They knew he had chosen her. But Ethan didn't care. As he held her hand under the endless night sky, one truth burned brighter than all the rest. He had chosen her once as a child, and now he was choosing her again, no matter the cost. The turning point, the cliffs stretched endlessly beneath the stars, jagged rocks overlooking the valley below. Ethan and the alien girl huddled inside a narrow cave, the faint glow of a lantern flickering against the stone walls. His body ached. From the fight, bruises along his ribs, a cut on his cheek, but none of that mattered. What mattered was that she was safe, at least for now. She sat across from him, silent, her silver eyes shimmering in the dim light. Her hood was gone, her markings bare, her glow impossible to hide. In the colony, she would have stood out like a flare. But here, among the rocks, her glow looked almost natural-like, a star that had fallen to earth. Still, she trembled. "They'll come for us," she whispered. Ethan leaned back against the stone, his voice steady. "Then let them. We'll be ready." Her eyes darted to him, pained. "You don't understand. By protecting me, you've made yourself a target. You'll lose everything. Your home, your place in the colony, your people." Ethan's jaw tightened. "They stopped being my people when they turned on you." Her breath shook. She wrapped her arms around herself as if trying to hold together the pieces of her heart. "I didn't want this for you, Ethan. I didn't come back to destroy your life." "Then why did you come back?" Ethan asked, his voice quieter now. For a long moment, she didn't answer. The silence was broken only by the faint hiss of the lantern. Then, finally, her words spilled out, raw and unsteady. "Because I was afraid," she whispered. "Afraid that if I disappeared forever, no one would remember I ever existed. Afraid That all I went through, all the pain, all the changes meant nothing. Her silver eyes lifted, shimmering with tears. Do you know what it's like to look in the mirror and not know who you are anymore? To see a face that isn't yours? To hear people call you monster until you almost believe it? Her voice cracked. Ethan, I'm not human anymore. I'm not Sarati either. I'm something in between. A mistake. A shadow. And shadows don't belong anywhere. The words cut into Ethan like a blade. He wanted to protest, to tell her she was wrong, but she kept going, her sorrow pouring out like a flood. I tried to believe I was still the girl you knew. But every time I see my reflection, I remember the cages, the experiments, the way they tore us apart. My parents are gone. My childhood is gone. And now, even here, even with humans, I see the same fear in their eyes. I'll never be one of them again. Her voice trembled. So tell me, Ethan, how can you look at me and not see what I've become? How can you look at me and still see her? Ethan's chest ached. He leaned forward, his voice rough with emotion. Because when I look at you, I don't see the Sarati scars. I see the girl who tied string around my broken toy so it wouldn't fall apart. I see the girl who shared the stars with me through a wooden fence. I see the girl who promised me we'd see them together one day. Her breath hitched, her hands trembling. Ethan's voice grew stronger, steady. They tried to change you. They tried to erase you, but they failed. Because no matter what they did, you're still you. You're still Stargirl. A tear slid down her cheek. She covered her face with her hands, her body shaking. Ethan moved closer, gently lowering her hands so he could meet her gaze. You survived, he whispered. And that alone makes you stronger than any of them. Don't ever call yourself a mistake. You are proof of something they could never understand. She blinked, her voice barely audible. What proof? That humanity isn't just blood or skin, Ethan said firmly. It's memory, it's love, it's the promises we keep even when everything tries to break us. For a long moment, silence filled the cave. She stared at him, her silver eyes wide, shimmering with both disbelief and hope. Then, slowly, she leaned into him. Her forehead rested against his chest, her body trembling. Ethan wrapped his arms around her, steady and warm, holding her as if the world itself couldn't pull her away. I don't deserve this, she whispered. Double quotes, yes you do, Ethan said softly. More than anyone I've ever known. They sat like that for what felt like hours. The flickering lantern the only witness to their fragile embrace. Outside, the night deepened, the stars spreading wide across the sky. Finally, she lifted her head, her silver gaze searching his face. Ethan, if I stay with you, if I let myself hope again, then you need to understand something. What? Her voice steadied, though her hands still trembled. Those Sarati don't let go of their creations. If they find me, if they learn, I've survived, they'll come. And when they do, they won't just take me. They'll take anyone who stands in their way. Ethan's eyes hardened. Let them try. You don't mean that? She whispered. Yes, I do, he said firmly. Because I'd rather fight for you than live in a world where you're gone again. Her lips parted, her breath catching. For a moment, she looked as though she wanted to argue. But instead, she let out a soft, trembling laugh. You've always been stubborn, she whispered. And you've always been worth it, Ethan replied. The lantern sputtered, casting shadows along the cave walls. Outside, the faint hum of distant colony alarms carried on the wind. Ethan knew the search would begin soon. Soldiers would comb the cliffs, hunting them both. But here, in this small cave, none of that mattered. What mattered was that she was no longer hiding her truth. And he was no longer hiding his choice. Together, they had crossed the point of no return, as she lay down beside him. Exhaustion finally pulling her into sleep, Ethan remained awake. Watching the stars through a crack in the cave roof, he thought. Of the colony, their whispers, their judgment, their betrayal. He thought of the Serati, the monsters who had stolen her life. And he thought of the promise made so long ago under the Earth's night sky. When we grow up, we'll see the stars together. Now at last, that promise was alive again. And Ethan swore, with every beat of his heart, that he would keep it. No matter who came for them, no matter the cost.